Welcome to a WANE 15 special presentation. Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana. Now here's your host, WANE 15's Alyssa Ivinson.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight as we salute and honor those who serve. For the next hour, we'll tell stories of veterans from around Northeast Indiana, many who were on a special all-Purple Heart honor flight in August. We start tonight in Washington, D.C. at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, where while searching for a name, several veterans discovered another connection. Vietnam Army veteran Jan Fraze searches the rows and rows of names.
I've thought about him for 50-some years. We were close, we were tight. It was like we were brothers, and we're still brothers.
A salute.
Donald Siegel.
A prayer.
Peter Langnauer.
And honoring their memory.
Bobby Joe Likes. I was trying to give him everything he deserved. The honor that he deserved, not just the wall, but for his life. And the opportunity for me to live a long, good life that they were not able to do. And we were side by side when it all went down, and I know we were fighting for each other. And I'll never forget them, ever. I just wished I was here to shake their hand. I'd salute them again.
Moments of reflection keep their legacy alive.
In my soul, in my heart, they're still there.
Veterans line the wall, looking for their fallen friends.
Were you guys just looking for Rex Ackerman?
Then sometimes,
My dad just was.
in the sea of names,
Oh, we just found it.
it's a small world.
It's fifth line down. Right there.
Right there, sure enough. Interesting.
Unexpected connections.
We all ran together. He was high school buddies of ours.
We were high school buddies.
Sharing stories.
I was there 68, 69.
Well, I was there 67 and 69.
So you left.
Yeah, because Rex went right after he got out of high school.
And laughs.
Went over to Charlie's in Hicksville together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
To heal wounded hearts.
He was proud of what he did.
Yeah.
So that's what
Rex
matters.
was a good
Oh, Rex. He was the nicest guy. Just the nicest guy. He'd never hurt a fly.
Just outside the wall, there was a special pinning for all the Vietnam veterans on the trip.
I'm going to tell you that a grateful nation thanks and honors you for your service and sacrifice. We really appreciate you and all that you have done, and I'm going to welcome you home.
Each veteran was honored with a special lapel pin. The veterans say the short ceremony will leave a lasting impression.
To have the welcome home for the 50th anniversary of coming home from Vietnam has been just tremendous.
Long time coming. I mean, shoot, we weren't really welcomed home when we came back. As a matter of fact, when I came home, I hurried up as fast as I could to get out of my uniform because of all the animosity and stuff like that that was coming toward us. In awe of the appreciation of having that Purple Heart, you know, I really was quiet about that too.
The pin itself, it's really nice. It says Vietnam, and we're getting credit for something that a lot of Marines, when they came home, they almost wanted to drop their head and just kind of hide. Now we're getting good recognition.
There were 90 Vietnam veterans who got those pins on that flight. Still to come on Veterans Voices, we take you to special wreath-laying ceremonies in D.C. And later, fighters in the fort will go to the 122nd Fighter Wing to meet a pilot and the new F-16 fighter jets. Stay with us.
Those that have left us ahead of their time, the ones that gave all, and those that are serving now.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Adam Brower with Honor Flight Northeast Indiana. We have several stories of veterans who have recently flown with us on their honor flight, and we're going to share them with you in the next hour. We're going to include stories from our Purple Heart trip, a husband and wife veteran, and more. If you are a veteran who has not yet signed up for your free trip, we hope these stories will motivate you to do so. For our first story, we wanted to share a few thoughts about what Honor Flight has meant to our veterans during their trip.
I never even knew there was nothing like this. And I forgot how I found out about it. I don't know if I found out from one of you kids. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to me that they would honor people that, you know, because like they said, I came home one at a time because I was Air Force. So there was nobody there greeting you. So that's another big thing too.
Well, it's a great deal. It's an honor and quite an experience to come and see it, and like the people clapping and everything. It's quite an experience.
It means the world to me. It's in a sense a healing process. It brings back a lot of good and sad memories. But I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. I was just at the wall, and friends of mine. That was pretty emotional.
I guess it means that I'm spending time with other veterans that have served the country in different places, different branches of service, and I think the camaraderie on the plane is a lot. You meet a lot of different people.
It brought a lot of tears, happiness, an emotional roller coaster, but it means a lot to be able to be on this. It's an honor to be on the honor flight and just to share with other veterans, listen to their stories. And I did 40 years of service, so I'm just blessed to be able to do this and be here to able to even walk after the injury in Afghanistan. So yeah, I end up with a form of Parkinson and it's from traumatic brain injury, and I'm able to function and still do this trip and get a lot out of it. And like I said, it's just listening to stories from other veterans.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana continues with your host, Alyssa Ivinson.
Part of the Purple Heart Honor Flight included wreath-laying ceremonies at the Navy and Marine Corps memorials, as well as in Arlington at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Here's a look at those ceremonies. Also in Arlington, Army veteran Cecilia Fravel was recognized, and her name and story were added into the registry at the Military Women's Memorial. Up next on Veterans Voices, a special breakfast in Fort Wayne not only honors veterans, it helps those in need. We'll explain. And coming up later, the remains of a Civil War veteran related to an Albion woman are laid to rest in Arlington. The incredible story of honor and sacrifice. Stay with us.
Take my time that day, don't get involved in anything, and meet and talk with people. It brings back the memories of the friends I lost in Nam.
When the Honor Flight program was first founded, it was all about World War II veterans. And for Honor Flight Northeast Indiana, and 45 flights later, it's a challenge for us to be able to find a World War II veteran in our area that's still able to travel. But back in April, on our 41st Honor Flight, we had the distinct privilege of taking a World War II veteran with us on his Honor Flight. Here's his story.
My son and I, we was with the changing guard. We also put the reef on the old soldier, my son and I. The minute they said World War II and you're over 100, they just throwed it at us. Yeah, just throwed it at us. So every picture that we ever got or such like, right out in front. Right when it's spread out, we were right in the front. I kind of feel we got more publicity because there's other soldiers in there that had to do more than I did. And there was also a group from southern Indiana with us too, that came the same day. Man, I don't know how they arranged it, to be honest with you. It's amazing.
That right there says it all.
Yep.
Yep, there's men not thinking about themselves. They've got their country in mind.
As far as health is concerned, everybody knows, their body knows what they are. And they don't need to worry if they can handle their own bathroom stuff and that kind of stuff, because that's all you have to do. And you don't have to worry about eating because they carry it right to you. So I would recommend anybody to go. They could go that would want to. Now, I understand World War II, there was several that wasn't able to go, and others was afraid of flights and things of that nature. Well, you know, it don't do you any good to see something wonderful if you're scared. You got to see it on the level. I know if I do better when I feel good than I do when I don't, but I make myself feel good. If they wore the number, they're worthy. We're not wanting to see it, to go. It's amazing. It's just nothing. You couldn't find any place to go or to see than you got there. You'd be well taken care of. You're just as safe there as you are sitting in your chair at home.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Now, back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana with your host, WANE 15's Alyssa Ivinson.
Every third Saturday of the month, local Marine Corps League Detachment 1435 Pride and Purpose hosts a pancake breakfast. But beyond the flapjacks, all the money that comes in goes back out to help other veterans.
Our pancake breakfast is more than just a breakfast. Yeah, it's a $6 meal for the best omelet or pancakes you can have, but the friendships that you'll build and the community that you'll build up is what's most important.
I love that it brings our community together. We have people from all over Fort Wayne, the surrounding areas. They all come here, and they're all doing it to support the same cause, helping veterans here in our community.
We raise money to give away. That's the whole purpose of our Marine Corps League. We raise it up and we just give it away to whoever needs it, whether it be a veteran, whether it be just someone in our community. I just love giving money away.
Not only members from our Marine Corps League Detachment, but also the VFW post, the American Legion post that's here. We all volunteer here together, and we're all bringing community members together. And we have the Army Veterans group that always comes every month. It's great to have them here every time. We see the same people every month, but we also have people that are new each month, which we're glad to have them come in.
We were invited by the Marine Corps to come out, even though we're Army guys. It's just a great place for a Saturday morning breakfast. Price is more than reasonable, service is great, and the Marines treat us exceptionally well.
And I hadn't seen most of these guys for probably 40 years. And all of a sudden, somebody, he's passed on now, but he got this started. Ken Short is his name, and we all started meeting for breakfasts, and it's just a lot of fun.
We got some tall stories in here. When you get too many Marines in one place, it gets deep real quick, but it's hilarious, and it's just for us a way we can spend 3 or 4 hours a day together and just have a good time and help our cause out.
Everyone knows at least somebody that served in some capacity, and everyone just enjoys hearing stories, smiling faces, still enjoy a great meal. Just a good time to come on out.
The best part is just seeing the people from Fort Wayne area come in, have a reasonable, well-nourished breakfast that we put together ourselves, and the camaraderie.
Well, one is cheap. Number 2 is very good. And number 3, you can get a cheap breakfast, very good, and you're also helping support the veterans.
The next breakfast is November 18th at the VFW, Jim Eby Post 857. That's at 2202 West Main Street. The breakfast is from 8 to 11, costs $6 for adults, $4 for kids. You get a choice of pancakes and sausage, biscuits and gravy, or you can build an omelet. You can get all-you-can-eat pancakes for $11. Again, all the money raised helps veterans in need. Still to come, it's a ceremony more than a century in the making. We go to Arlington for special services as a Civil War soldier's remains are laid to rest. Plus, coming up on Veterans Voices, we take you to the 122nd Fighter Wing in Fort Wayne and give you an up-close look at the new F-16 fighter jets.
Big day for me because that's when I think about my 5 buddies I lost. Never forget them. VFW, remember, I usually march on Veterans Day. It's a special day.
It's an honor when we have an opportunity to fly female veterans with us to Washington, D.C. It's an even bigger honor when one of those veterans was also a Purple Heart recipient. During our Purple Heart trip in August, where we took 102 Purple Heart veterans, thanks to the Whoa Penny Pitch program, we had one female veteran with us that was awarded a Purple Heart. We asked her about her trip that day, and here's what Cecilia had to say and her ask to other female veterans watching tonight.
My name is Cecilia Fravel. I was in the Army from 2007 to 2014, active duty. My job was 74 Delta, chemical warfare, and I came out as a specialist. When I heard about the Purple Heart trip, I was so excited. I never thought I'd be chosen. I just felt so privileged, so excited, and I just couldn't believe it. I got signed up and it was simple and I was ready to go 3 months before it was even going. The first thing I experienced on my trip, it wasn't just a one-day event. It was an evening event first. There was a very nice dinner. We had a lot of speakers come in, and it was just a special moment. It was a special moment to stand up and look around and see all the Purple Heart veterans with me. All the men that went through the same exact thoughts and feelings that I did, and that still go through the same thoughts and feelings. And it was humbling, and it was just really wonderful to be around them. When I first met them, I have to be honest, it was a little overwhelming, but it's like we all just clicked right in together. It didn't matter which era they were from. We just fit, became best friends immediately. The thing that stuck out to me the most during the day in DC was being able to change over the wreaths in Arlington. It meant so much to me. I have lost several friends, people I loved. It just honors them and honors their memories and their time in service. And while I was out there, you know, I just thought about them, thought about our good times, our bad times, and thought, I hope they're proud of me. To all my women veteran friends, if you're watching tonight, sign up. This is a privilege and an honor to be able to go down and meet with people just like you. Because even if you're feeling alone, there's someone always there to be with you and support you. And the honor flight will do that for you.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana continues with your host, Alyssa Ivinson.
From being forgotten on a shelf to full military honors in Arlington, an Albion woman's ancestor who fought in the Civil War now has the recognition he deserves. It was a ceremony more than a century in the making.
It felt good to put him finally, I felt like I could rest now that he was finally something was done.
Rachel Bender's journey from Albion, Indiana to Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. started with an unexpected email last November.
Well, I wasn't expecting to find Isaac himself in cremains.
Major Isaac C. Hart, Civil War commander, sitting on a shelf in a cemetery in Cincinnati. The military tag shows he died in 1913. A man came across the container, then set on a quest to find his family.
He was on a shelf in an unclaimed division. So that means he's been sitting there for 110 years without a funeral.
That changed in April through documents that Bender had recently inherited, which mentioned the signature of President Andrew Johnson. She could prove that her great-great-uncle, Isaac C. Hart, earned a military burial. A major for the Union Army, he volunteered to lead the black troops into battle.
This is part of their history. They fought in the Civil War and died. And Isaac, what he did volunteering was quite a big step. He just had to be extremely brave and had to believe in what he was doing to do that. And he volunteered, I think it was 3 times. We are very proud of Isaac and his service.
Now Bender can honor her great-great-uncle with his burial flag from the final resting place for our nation's heroes.
He was laid to rest today, finally, and he deserved that.
This was the first time since 2018 that a Civil War soldier was laid to rest in Arlington, but those soldiers' remains were unidentified. Major Hart now has a marble headstone with a crest reserved just for those who fought in the Civil and Spanish-American Wars. Still to come, F-16s will soon be flying in the skies above Fort Wayne again. We go to the Air National Guard base to see the new planes and meet one of the pilots. Plus, a send-off celebration before the Purple Heart Honor Flight will take you to the banquet at the Coliseum when Veterans Voices continues.
I'm 94 years old. I was in the Korean War. I went in 52 and got out in 54. And when I got back from Korea, I had 4 months left to go in the Marine Corps.
We get numerous questions about our current waiting list and where a veteran is on that list, or even how long it is before they get to go. We do get new applications almost every day, and most of them are Vietnam at this point, but we still give priority to our World War II and Korean veterans when their applications arrive. Let's revisit some information that members of our board, Max and Dennis, have previously shared with us.
When they submit an application, if it's a paper application, it's reviewed by our nursing people. It's reviewed by them to make sure that everything is okay medically. If not, they will make telephone calls to the veteran or a guardian to determine that. And then that paper application is sent to me and reviewed by me. First of all, it's put into the database, and then it's reviewed by me to make sure everything's okay. And then I will send a card that tells the veteran that we have received their application. That's all that card does, is just tell them that we received the application. There's no confirmation of a flight or anything like that.
The veteran is placed into a waiting list. Now, the priority to go on an honor flight
starts with World War II veterans and veterans of any era who are terminally ill. Next, post-World War II, that's after World War II, but before the Korea War. Then Korea veterans. Following that is the Cold War era, and then following that is the Vietnam and the Vietnam era. So it's important to realize that veterans can go, it's not where you served, it's when you served in the era that determines when you are placed in line and when you will get to go on an honor flight.
We can tell you exactly where you are on the waiting list. Every veteran has a number. Your number may change on the list depending on, for example, how many maybe Korean vets get on the list ahead of you. I mean, then they go to the top of the list, and then your number changes. Our database has the ability to put people in the order depending on when they served, and if that Korean vet gets on there, then he will bump you down a few numbers. You should never be discouraged because of the waiting list. We take 340 veterans per year. We take 85 veterans on each flight, and we take 4 flights a year. That waiting list moves fairly quickly when you look at it from that standpoint. Any veteran, in spite of their health situation, should not hesitate to make application. It's easily been done by many veterans. We're able to accommodate almost every situation. So don't be reluctant to make an application because of your health situation. Let our people and your physician make that determination.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Now, back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana with your host, WANE 15's Alyssa Ivinson.
Welcome back. This is the 69th year for Fighters in the Fort. The 122nd Fighter Wing has flown 10 different fighter jets over the years, and right now it's transitioning back to the F-16s. We got an inside look at the Indiana Air National Guard base as the planes are settling in to their new home. The power of the F-16.
I mean, you're sitting on a rocket. You know, by the end of the runway, you'd be at 450 miles an hour if you wanted. It just throws fuel back here and ignites, and that's how you get the big plume of fire, afterburner out the back, and the additional thrust. So it'll pull 9 Gs. You take your body weight times 9, and that's the force that's getting put on that seat.
The newest addition to the 122nd Fighter Wing.
I love it.
Colonel Scott Boatwright flew F-16s when he first became a fighter pilot 20 years ago.
It's the first airplane I deployed combat in.
He's been mostly in Fort Wayne since 2007 and flew the A-10s too. His career now coming full circle as the F-16s return to the Summit City.
You probably saw the A-10s flying over. This one, you'll hear us more than you see us because we'll usually come back a little bit higher altitude so it's not as noisy.
The military mission is slightly different.
Fight your way in air to air, drop your precision-guided bombs, and then fight your way out air to air. That multi-role capability is what this airplane brings that the A-10 didn't have.
But the mission for the city is steadfast.
Fighters in here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So the A-10 was going away and we saw the writing out on the wall. So we've struggled and tried to get this airplane here for quite some time, and we finally did.
Around 1,000 people work at the Air National Guard base, 300 of them full-time, bringing an economic impact to the region of around $100 million.
It is Fort Wayne's Air Force. There's a lot of bases that don't have the community support that we do in Fort Wayne, Indiana. We do try to give a little bit of support back from what we receive.
The planes may be different, but the 122nd Fighter Wing will always be the Black Snakes.
So General Wayne was referred to as a Black Snake the way he used to fight. That's why you'll see Black Snakes on this airplane. The neat thing about this airplane is it'll bridge the gap to a follow-on 5th-gen airplane for us, so we can keep flying fighters out here in Fort Wayne, and I'm sure we'll be called the Black Snakes from now till then.
The base will get around 20 F-16s, most of them coming from an Air Force base in Arizona. They are still arriving, but the base hopes to be back doing drills in the spring. The air show at the Fighter Wing, by the way, is every 3 years. The next one will be in 2025. Still to come on Veterans Voices, there was a special banquet before the Purple Heart Honor Flight. Hear from the guest speaker who shared his story. And then we'll take you inside the Welcome Home celebration. See what it's like through the eyes of the veterans. Stay with us.
There for a long time, it was just another day. And the older I've gotten, it means more to me. A lot more people come up to me if I'm wearing a veteran's hat, and I appreciate that.
You hear the terms Purple Heart, Bronze Star, and Distinguished Service Cross, but these are not medals handed out for years of service. No, the veterans who were awarded these type of medals did so by being wounded in combat, saving the lives of their fellow veterans, and going above and beyond the call of duty where their own life was at risk. We took 100 Purple Heart veterans to Washington, D.C. this past August on National Purple Heart Day. This is one of their stories.
My name is Jan Fraze. I was in the U.S. Army, enlisted in 1967 and was out of the Army in 1970. Spent 2 years in Vietnam. Being amongst all these brothers of mine, to know that they did the same thing I did, to know that they're here for about the same reason I am, because it's an honor to me and an honor to them. And it was a very, very enjoyable deal with everybody. Each one of them had a whole total different opinion and story about it. And everyone I talked to. And I couldn't talk to all of them because there was 102 of them. I could tell by the looks on their faces, they were really enjoying themselves. They put us in a hotel, which I wasn't expecting that. Then that next morning, pretty early, they got us up and we went to Bear Field, had breakfast there, and I got to do a little interview there. And I'll tell you what, the biscuits and gravy tasted just like it was in the military. Identical. It brought back a memory right away. The Vietnam Memorial was very exhilarating. You know, it was right from the heart. It showed that a lot of people cared, and I appreciated that. We didn't get much of a caring attitude when we got back, but it was kind of like the era at that time. To me, it seemed like they were trying to make a wrong a right. That made me feel good. I think this helped me. I didn't have like a full closure. Something like that's kind of hard to shut out. I carry that baggage with me every day. I think about it. I lost some very good friends, very good people there, and there was a couple that saved me. Didn't have to go out and get me, but I mean they were with me on my right and on my left. I think that if they go and look at the wall and look at the people that they knew, say a prayer, I believe that really helps you let go. I'm not saying right away, but a little each day, I think it lets you go. I felt that. I could take a deep breath and have sort of an answer for it.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana continues with your host, Alyssa Ivinson.
102 Purple Heart veterans were on that special honor flight in August. And before the big trip to D.C., there was a banquet at the Memorial Coliseum with a message from fellow Purple Heart veteran Colonel Greg Gatson.
This is a historic flight for the Honor Flight Network as a whole. We have 130 hubs around the United States. This is the first ever flight of all Purple Heart veterans that we're taking to DC to have their Day of Honor. So this is a pretty special event for the Honor Flight Network as a whole, for our hub here in Northeast Indiana.
It's part of my continued service as a veteran, and certainly an honor to be a part of such a large group of Americans and American families that have made a huge sacrifice serving our nation. So, I never really thought about it, but, this is 16 plus years from when I was wounded. It's the first time I've done something like this, and just taking time to be around again so many people like me.
Well, to be in a room full of greatness is very humbling, and I'm honored to be here. And a sense of duty runs through our Hoosier veins. Whenever our nation has needed heroes, Indiana has always answered the call.
I am so honored to be with these particular people. In every generation, it takes someone to say, I'll stand up to the bully, I'll go out there. And here they all are. 100 of them. It's beyond honor.
My message tonight is we Purple Heart recipients, we represent a bridge between those families who have made the ultimate sacrifice and those who fortunately were not wounded. And what our responsibility and legacy is to carry on, not only to the future generations, but to me, most importantly, to live our best lives for those who didn't come back.
I wasn't hurt nearly as badly as so many people in this room. But as the pastor just said, so much of the hurt was in the heart and in the mind, as well as the body. So I'm walking with a cane, but the hurt has been here.
We are so excited to watch tomorrow as they get to DC. They're going to just be blown away by the amount of support they're going to get on Purple Heart Day in DC. It's going to be amazing. It truly is.
Honor Flight started in 2005 in Ohio. There are now 130 chapters across the country, and they've taken more than 300,000 veterans to Washington for a day of honor. Honor Flight Northeast Indiana made history, being the first honor flight to be made up entirely of Purple Heart veterans. Coming up on Veterans Voices, we have a special look at the Welcome Home celebration for that Purple Heart honor flight and see how one fellow veteran stood out in the crowd. Then later, never forgetting the fallen. We see how servicemen and women are honored in Marion National Cemetery. Stay with us.
Well, it's pretty hard to say anything, but other than I'm still in awe and honored for serving our country.
Did you know that only about 7 to 9% of military personnel are in what's called a dual military marriage role? That means that both husband and wife are actively serving in the military. Going back to World War II and Korea, those percentages were even smaller. We have a story of one married couple that just went on their honor flight trip together. Take a listen.
I'm Harold Beck in the U.S. Navy, personnelman, second class petty officer, and I served between 1954 and 1957.
I'm Marion Beck. I was in the United States Navy as a WAVE. I served 1956 and 1957.
We met at the U.S. Naval Training Center at Bainbridge, Maryland. Marion was stationed on the third floor and part of the secretarial staff for the base commander. I was on the second floor in charge of the officer record section. Occasionally, Marion would have business to come down on our floor. I noticed her, and of course a lot of other gentlemen noticed her. And I made the remark one time, I said, I think I'm going to marry that girl. Well, you should never say things because they come back to haunt you. So, there were a few of us that met about the way Marion and I did and were married. So there were 3 or 4 couples. And in fact, the one couple, the gentleman stood up for me as my best man.
I had the honor of being selected one of 4 to lay the wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier. And I was so emotional because not everyone gets chosen to be have that honor.
If you have not signed up yet to go on an honor flight, I would highly encourage everyone to do it. It is an incredible experience.
When Harold told me we got the call, I said, "Who was that?" And Harold told me, he said, "We're going on the honor flight." We couldn't even eat our supper because we were so excited. I know everyone can't go on the flight, but no matter who you are or what service you were in, you should try to go on the honor flight.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Now, back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana with your host, WANE 15's Alyssa Ivinson.
Welcome back. More than 1,000 people came to the Coliseum for a special welcome home for the Purple Heart Honor Flight veterans back in August. Tonight, we take you inside the barricades through the eyes of the Purple Heart heroes. We start with our view on the first bus rolling into the Coliseum as the lights flip on to reveal the celebration.
This is what they deserved long time ago.
Very overwhelming, very humble to see the support that people come out here in Fort Wayne. I really appreciate it. Really warms my heart.
I was really surprised. I thought there'd be some people here, but there's a lot of people here.
Thank you for your service. Welcome home.
For years, you carry a burden inside where people may not have respected or appreciated what you did for the country. We did what we were supposed to do. We had a job, we did it, and we fulfilled it the best we could.
It felt good. It felt real good. But I don't know if anybody really appreciates you anymore, but it's been, I'm 75 years old, and that was back when I was 17, 18 years old. And it was good.
Thank you to all the folks that come out tonight. The young children, it's very late, the young children and all the people, and the honor flight for all the hard work they do, the dedication they give to veterans and Purple Heart recipients. I thank you.
Army veteran stood out in the crowd. He saluted each and every veteran who came home from that honor flight. Stephen Furtko would stand up as the veteran neared and then stayed at attention, saluting until he was dismissed with a return salute. His service dog Gracie, who helps with his PTSD, was by his side the whole time. A combat veteran, Furtko served 31 years in the Army and was deployed several times to Iraq, Bosnia, Kosovo, and Kuwait.
They deserve it. They deserve it.
Yeah.
They gave their bodies and their lives for our country. They were willing to give up their lives for our country.
Poor Gracie, she wants to get moving.
And that says something big.
You did too, sir. And that says something big too. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Furtko has not yet been on an honor flight himself. Up next on Veterans Voices, thousands of reminders that freedom isn't free, and it's our duty to never forget. We'll take you to Marion National Cemetery after this.
Just honoring all future, past and current warriors, service members. That's what I look for.
The welcome home. It's that time at the end of our flight when the day our veterans come home to see the crowd, their friends, their loved ones. It's the welcome home that so many of our veterans have never received until tonight. Everyone is welcome here at the Fort Wayne International Airport for all of our welcome home events. Every veteran is impacted in a very special way when they are greeted by this crowd, their friends, their loved ones, their community. Here is one very special story that many of our veterans can relate to.
Name is Donald Hoagland, a rank Staff Sergeant D6 on the E7 promotion list. I served from January 25th of 1966 until February 9th of 1974, working as a drill instructor at Fort Dix, New Jersey. The Vietnam, to this day, I still say was a political fought war. If they would have had the same programs back then as they have now. We would not have been called baby killers. We would not have had the problems that the veterans still face today. My experience was, very first experience as when I came home and landed here at that time it was just bare field. The only people that was there was my mother and father. And of course, back then, there was a Back 40 restaurant in Decatur because I was a resident of Adams County, and we went there for lunch. And I ran into an individual that I graduated from high school with. And this individual confronted me, wanted to know where I had been, and of course I was still in military uniform. And when I told him, the first thing he did was punch me in the mouth. He didn't knock me down, but I just turned right around and said, "Thank you, maybe one of these days you will understand."
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Now, back to Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana with your host, WANE 15's Alyssa Ivinson.
More than 4 million Americans are buried in the VA's national cemeteries. There are 155 of them in 42 states. Tonight, we take a trip about an hour south of Fort Wayne to Marion National Cemetery, where heroes are never forgotten. The flags. The names. The rows and rows of marble. From the first burial in 1890, Marion National Cemetery is the final resting place for more than 14,000 veterans.
Never let that veteran die a second death, so to always keep their memory in mind.
Dave Drake is the cemetery's assistant director.
This is home for me, and we consider it a national shrine. We are mainly veteran employees that work here, take a lot of pride in what we do.
People can visit year-round, but for Memorial Day, every marker gets a flag. While the cemetery is still active, with more than 500 burials last year and an expansion underway, there's a lot of history. From old buildings with new uses.
Our maintenance yard has excavators and everything in it now, and had cattle before. It's definitely a lot of history out here.
To soldiers' sacrifices more than a century ago.
We have 3 Medal of Honor recipients. They are Civil War era Henry Hyde, Jeremiah Cooter, and Nicholas Irwin. The Medal of Honor, I mean, that's the highest award that you can receive, so you distinguish yourself, you know, most likely in some type of combat situation.
It's a peaceful place to honor and remember. As Dave does his rounds,
I saw him every single day as a kid.
There's one grave.
Brings back a lot of great memories. Proud that he served.
He always visits.
My grandfather served in the Navy. He served in Korea, actually. Very proud of that fact.
And helped inspire a family line of service. Drake was in the Army for 20 years.
Spent a lot of time in the 82nd Airborne Division, 12 out of 20 jumping out of aircraft, so really enjoyed it. My son's there now and 2 years into his enlistment.
It's the pride of serving your country, working with veterans for veterans every day. But one day a year, the pause and reflection is a little longer.
It means a lot to be able to come out here on Memorial Day specifically. At the end of the day, I always make it a point to go over and visit his gravesite.
Thousands of reminders that freedom isn't free, and it's the nation's duty to never forget. If you've served at least 2 years in the military and were honorably discharged, you likely qualify to be buried in a national cemetery. You can see more on eligibility in this story on WANE.com. Up next, we take you to the final moments on an honor flight. Mail call on the plane. We'll be right back.
WANE's birthday, I've always enjoyed it. Twice I was in Italy and enjoyed it there too.
Happy birthday, Jarheads. It's hard to be humble when you're just good.
Semper Fi.
Just wish all the Marines a happy birthday.
Outstanding. Hoorah!
And of course, back then, there was a Back 40 restaurant in Decatur because I was a resident of Adams County, and we went there for lunch. And I ran into an individual that I graduated from high school with. And this individual confronted me, wanted to know where I had been, and of course I was still in military uniform. And when I told him, the first thing he did was punch me in the mouth. He didn't knock me down, but I just turned right around and said, thank you, maybe one of these days you will understand. I have Vietnam veteran hats, t-shirts that I was afraid to wear out in public. And that's kind of hard. However, today is different. The honor flight gives those of us that were never welcomed home or have the advantage of someone saying, welcome home. I respect you and the other people that volunteer your time to give those of us the welcome home that we never received when we came home. And I will add that the same day that I entered, that we entered the honor flight, was the exact day that I returned from Vietnam 56 years ago. To me, it was overwhelming because the welcome home that I received put closure on Vietnam for me.
Honor Flight Northeast Indiana would like to thank Tony Murray, Three Rivers Federal Credit Union, and all of our sponsors for making tonight's show possible.
Veterans Voices of Northeast Indiana continues with your host, Alyssa Ivinson.
We end tonight with how the honor flights end. On the flight home, the veterans have mail call, opening envelopes packed with cards and notes of thanks. Once they land, a final taps is played on the plane. Now we take you to the final moments on the Purple Heart honor flight.
There you go. Rudolph Dixie, Rudy. Major Tibor Beerball. Charles Beery. David Taborski.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight as we salute and honor all who serve. You can see these stories again and many more on the Veterans Voices page of WANE.com. From all of us at WANE 15, thank you to all of our veterans. Have a good night.